So I got time to read one passage. Let me read one passage. And this is Simon Simon the Pharisee in chapter 7 and the sinful woman. I love this story. Then one of the Pharisees invited him to eat with him. And he entered the Pharisee's house and reclined. Very important. Da Vinci's a pretty good painter, but he has no idea of how people actually sat at tables in Jesus' day. He's got it all wrong. They reclined. They lean on their left elbow in a low table, about this low, called a triclinium, and they eat with their right hand, which explains why this woman can be standing next to the wall and her tears fall on Jesus' feet. That's the only way this works, right? She's not under the table like a dog or something. So he's reclining, and a woman in the town who was a sinner found out Jesus was reclining at the table in the Pharisee's house. She brought an alabaster jar of fragrant oil. This is nard that grows in the foothills of the Himalayas. This is not Jean Naté or Brut or something like that. This is something her grandmother leaves to her mother and her mother leaves to her. The value, you know, it's worth a year's wages, basically. That's another story, but... So she stands behind him weeping, and she begins to wash his feet with her tears, and she wiped them with the hair of her head, kissing them and anointing them with the fragrant oil. When the Pharisee who had invited Jesus saw this, he said to himself, now watch for this, people who talk to themselves in the Gospels are bad people. Don't do this. Don't talk to yourself. Stop that. Okay, not good. So he says to himself, this man, if he were a prophet, would know what kind of woman who is touching him. She's a sinner. Now, if you want to lead a very easy life, you just learn to do what Simeon just did, and you put people in categories. Who is Jesus to Simeon? He's a prophet. Who's this woman? She's a sinner. Here's a woman who's weeping in his house. He doesn't know her name, doesn't really seem to be very interested in what's wrong, right? Because he's categorized her. And it's really easy if you want to live your life this way. You know, that's a homeless person. Well, I don't need to know their name or why they're homeless or what's wrong in their life because I've already got them in my category. See, that's a Democrat. We know about Democrats, right? That's I'm not comparing the Democrats and the homeless, but that's a Republican. See, we're all even, right? That's a Christian. Well, that's a Muslim. That's, you know, categories. Very, very easy way to live your life. Let me tell you, the best way to get to know someone is find out what hurts them. That's how you get to know somebody. You find out what hurts them. So anyway, Jesus replied, Simon, I have something to say to you. Isn't that nice? No name calling, not throwing anything. Teacher, say it. And then Jesus tells the little parable about the two debtors. He asked Simon the question, which one will love him more? And Simon says, well, I suppose the one who was forgiven more. No, I suppose the one he forgave more is what Simon says. And notice that Jesus, by telling this parable, is trying to move the answer. Simon's got the answer in his head. He's trying to move it to his heart. That's what parables do. They reconnect us, okay? You've judged correctly. See, so nice. Turning to the woman, he said to Simon, that's a very important eyewitness detail. Jesus is looking at her, but he's talking to Simon. And he says, and I'll stop here, he says the very important question, do you see this woman? Why would Jesus ask that question? Because Simon hadn't seen this woman. All he saw was one of his categories. And Paul tells us that categories are off. Slave, free, right? Jew, Gentile, male, female, all categories are off. We got to learn each other's names. We have to find out what hurts each other. That's what it means to be a follower of Jesus.